cameras together. Cool, Sarah. Yeah, hi everybody. Lovely to be in person, face to face. Long time coming. So I think most of you know me. I'm the LRG manager, and for those online, hello, nice to see you again. Looking forward to meeting you today.
Hello, I'm Tabitha and I am facilitating Zoom and taking some notes.
Hannah Staunton, so I lead the external engagement team, or comms team, whatever you want to call it, at East West Rail, and I chair this meeting.
Okay, hi everyone, Nikki Gribble, I'm Ward Councillor for Reynolds and Ravenston, and also Reynolds Parish Chair.
Thank you.
I'm Peter Norris. I help Reynolds Parish Council with East West Rail. I'm Gordon, excuse me, I'm Gordon Johnston, Vice Chair of Warren, Chorlton and Colston Parish Council.
Brent Fielder, Wilden Parish Council. Steve, I'm giving technical support to Ravenston Parish Council.
John Babbie, Parish Council member, Ravenston.
Thank you so much. And then we'll go to the team online, if we can. So I think Justin, you're first in my eye line.
Justin Griffiths, Chair of Roxton Parish Council.
Thank you so much. Pat? Pat, are you there? Come back to Pat. Joni?
Hi, Dr. Johnny Pelham. I'm Vice Chair, Shortstown Parish Council, and also a researcher in aviation safety and AI at Bedfordshire University.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Charlotte, would you like to give us a quick wave?
Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte and I'm helping write up the notes and make sure everything goes smoothly on the Zoom side, hopefully.
Fabulous, thank you. Tom? Is Tom there? Is that Amazon? I don't think so, it should be Tom. So I think we have Tom Middleton from Shortstown, Shortstown Parish Council. We'll see if Tom can introduce himself later. And Dylan?
Hi, I'm Councillor Dylan Simmons. I'm the Ward Councillor for Bromham Ward.
Wonderful, thanks so much. So if Tom and Pat can hear, do jump in and introduce yourself if that's something you want to do at some point in the meeting. And Mo and Rob, I wonder if you want to introduce yourselves as well, but we'll obviously be coming to you guys later.
Yep, I'm Rob Milner. I'm the area manager for the core section, which is basically the section between Bedford and Cambridge, but not Bedford or Cambridge.
And I'm Mo Al-Sardari, area manager for Bedford, the urban area only, so Bedford area.
Wonderful, thanks so much everyone. We'll do a little bit of light housekeeping. This is obviously a hybrid meeting, which means last time we tried this, the tech went a bit sideways, but we've done a lot of testing and the tech's in good space now. I think that means that sometimes it's a little bit harder to keep the balance between people in the room and people online. So we will be keeping a firm eye on anyone raising their hands online and anyone wanting to have that conversation. So I guess particularly to people online, if things are moving too fast, if you can't hear us, if you feel that you're not participating fully, please let us know, and we'll try and resolve that in the room as we go, so the meeting's as fruitful as it can be. Which kind of leads into the next point, which is we're all grown-ups here. As I always say, we can pick up questions as we go through, and I think a lot of today will be around Q&A. So we'll, I'm comfortable for people to sort of raise their hands, particularly online. It's helpful if people do that because it helps us understand the order of the questions. But we'll just try and keep things moving because I'm sure we've got a lot to get through today. So please let us know if you've got a question or a comment that you want to make as we go.
Sorry, Hannah, can I just ask how many people we've got online?
Sure, so we've got Justin.
Yeah.
We have got Dr. Johnny.
Yeah.
We have got Councillor Dylan. We've got Pat Olney. And so those are the sort of parish and ward participants, and then on our side.
Yeah, that's great, thanks. I just wanted just the 5 of us plus this,
I think
plus
so,
the
yeah.
people in the room.
There may be more people join later, and we'll try and welcome them if we see them.
Thank you.
Arrive. Sorry.
Hannah, on that, you've got 2 people in the waiting room saying on the screen.
Really?
Not sure if anyone else sees that.
Bernie and David, I've just asked him to confirm which parish council he's from because he's not on any of the lists.
So yes, okay. So I tell you what, we are going to go through some actions from the last meeting. So I suggest we kind of jump around a little bit because I guess that's pertinent to where we are right now. Let me just find my page. I should do. So yeah, let's jump to item 4. So we'll go a little bit backwards and we'll do the updates later because I think this is pertinent. I think this conversation would be helpful to have sort of now. So if you could go to slide, where are we? Yes, that's the one, complete. So actions. So one of the key actions from last time we met, there was a request to see if we could open the meeting to more participants, and we agreed to send a poll around.
I just disagree with that, Hannah. We had a live chat at the time, and I asked for a vote for. Bernie suggested 3. I know you were concerned about getting swamped, which I fully understand. Bernie suggested 3 participants. Gordon and 2 of the people said yes. Sarah Walker said yes, and I said yes. And you said, well, I can't quite see all the numbers on hand, but it sounds like we're going for 3, but I might just do a poll as well.
So we've listened back and we've got the transcript,
Yeah.
And we sent it around. We have the wording that was used in the meeting. And
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
I've
got it written here, but I can't read it in this slide.
So we said we'd send a poll. Sorry, Gordon, you had your hand up.
Sorry?
I thought you had, sorry. We did send a poll.
Yeah, just going on that then, what were the results of the poll?
So results on the next slide, if you want to flick that through.
May I just make a point before we move? I found that to be a slight break between the transcript, okay, and the action. It looked like the action had been written after the meeting, and the transcript was, and indeed the video, was much more that we were still discussing it, and you said you couldn't see the hands. The best way, that's you better have a poll. And the action then made it quite definite that there would be a poll. My only comment on that is that I attended the meeting. I searched for the poll. I couldn't find it, and I certainly wasn't consulted after the meeting.
That's interesting. Could we please double check that the poll did go out? What's your email address? Have you got your response from?
Yeah, you did, but it didn't. It wasn't in response to the poll.
I got your thing to the poll there, I think.
So it's an automated program that we have. So where's that come through?
What did it say?
This is on MS Forms.
Yeah.
Because I wrote a comment which I hope wasn't taken as being rude, but I couldn't see that the transcript and the action item were compatible with each other.
Okay, so I mean, I guess the question then, I guess for the group is where do we go from here? Because I think let's agree once and for all where we go from here. I think our position, as you know, we are concerned about that, but ultimately it's your meeting, and I think what we saw was that the people that did respond had a clear opinion that there should be 2. And John, I understand from our perspective, we have a response that came from the individual email that was sent to your email address. So we don't know how that happens. We can look into that, but there's that just the shoulder. There's a definite thing that came through that link, and it's an individual.
So where would I have found the poll if I'd have been alert and attentive?
That would have come through an email from
the local representatives groups,
and that sort of automatically generates which links sort of fills.
And who's it addressed
It's john.madley at, what's the?
Yeah, you know, that's the email address that I have for years.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, 8 years.
I recognise myself, but it's just that I couldn't, having searched several times, I still can't.
That's very odd, because it feels as someone snuck into your email account and responded on your behalf, which I think you may need to have a look at.
I've got, yeah, I can expand this particular area because it is relevant. And it concerns how East West Wales send out information to concerned people, particularly to this group, which is the LRG group for Bedfordshire. If we get emails which are in the recipient column, which says LRG group, it doesn't have our name, apart from the fact that it's arrived in our box. And we have no visibility of anybody else who's been invited.
Yeah, so
this is very standard, but how does EWR construct these address lists, these distribution lists?
So those email addresses that have been given to us, I think they were established probably early doors when we first reached out to the parish clerks and asked for representatives.
Right, I can understand that right from the beginning, you were sent these out to the parish clerks.
Mm-hmm.
For the parish clerks to send to the appropriate person within the parish council.
No, sorry, that's not quite what I said. Sorry, I'll be really precise. My understanding, my memory of how we formed the groups was we first asked the parish clerks to talk to the parish council as a whole and decide who would be representatives and to give us the appropriate contacts. So for some groups, we still do communicate through the clerks, I think, in a couple of spaces. For some, we will communicate with people directly. We obviously don't share email addresses. That goes against GDPR guidelines, so we have to do it as a blind copy to everyone. That's the guidelines for sending out these kind of emails.
But those guidelines, you can amend that if you get permission from each person.
Yeah, I've got permission from everyone. Yeah, that's fine.
So that might be worth asking. I don't think anybody would want to hold those back.
Well, I think we also have to remember that there are, although the meeting tends to be a similar group every time, there are 50-odd people on that mail shot. So I think the agreement from all of them is possible, but it might be a little bit more complicated than me at first.
So I'm still a bit confused.
Are you saying we've got the wrong people? I'm just trying to work out the issue. Do you think we've got the wrong people on the email circulation, or do you want to know who it's being circulated to?
I believe that from whatever all embracing distribution used at the beginning, it's been developed, and you tend to send emails to the person who last represented a particular council.
We send them to the clerk every time.
Right, okay.
If somebody has agreed to be that representative, then we do, but there's some cases.
Well, do you still send it to the clerk because the person that agreed to it might go into hospital, in which case someone else needs to be.
We do still send it to the clerks. We have a parish council tab basically, and it goes to
you've got
22
parish clerks that you on your
yeah, there's some cases where the parish might have a different setup and they might have asked us to email a specific email, but yes.
So, I mean, I've spoken to John, and it does appear that he dropped off the distribution.
So I'm very confused about this because and maybe it is, I don't know where it's going, but we literally have a response in our form system, which is not a system that we can, it's a very clear system, and the email that went to you has been opened by someone from an email account that is that email account and responded to.
I'm not going to argue that I'm of an age where if you tell me that that's what happened, I believe that's what happened.
Okay, cool.
But I think what I found slightly frustrating about all this is that the point of the LRG is to have a dialogue between East West Wales and those people most involved and interested in the parishes.
Mm-hmm.
That will vary according to who's in parish, and it will vary on where the parish is along the east-west line. I can imagine there are many parishes that you involve that won't be interested. But I think what we need to focus on is, rather than individual emails, we have to find a way having the dialogue between you and the parishes, which involves the right number of people in the most effective way.
Can I just make two observations? One is, on that slide, where the route is intended to go, it seems that most parish councils have opted to have 3 members present.
Yeah.
And secondly, in the meeting notes from last time, and I say this as a newcomer to the group, HS outlined it's up to the group's members to shape their terms of reference. So I don't think it should be taken as cut and dry as 2, because obviously there's a lot of demand.
Yeah,
Along the route for more representation.
absolutely understand that, and I think my personal view on this, you understand, but that doesn't mean that my, we don't vote in this. From our perspective, we sent a poll out, we're going to honour the wishes of the poll. If I misinterpreted what we decided in the room and the action was in fact something else, I think there's a few kind of different points.
Well, it was, Hannah, it was decided that it was 3, and then you said, so we'll take it as that. I think I'll just send out a poll as well. You've obviously played it back, so you know yourself as I've played it back today, and I've written it down. So it was taken as 3, and then you said you'd send out a little poll. What you didn't say was that the results of that poll would then be the terms of reference. I imagine you were bringing that back so we could discuss it again.
Okay, well that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So I really don't want anyone to have the impression.
I'll tell you, I don't want to. My problem with it is, Hannah, that we've got new parish councillors on. I wanted to bring one along tonight, but I couldn't do because I've got a technical expert online. He's probably still in the waiting room. I don't know if he's on. So I had to tell my new keen chap, which is terrible. I've got somebody who's keen, actually wants to come. I had to tell them they couldn't come because we were going to be limited to 2 as per your email. And so that's my problem. That's my quandary. I wanted there be 3 for Wilden. Wilden is heavily affected. I mean, some of these parish councils on here, it's not going to affect them. They're not even on the route. And yet Wilden is. And yet, so I'm going to be limited to myself and the technical expert. If I'm not available, if I'm up north looking after my dad, up north looking after my mum, I'm down south looking after my mother-in-law, whatever, then I've got nobody to fall back on who's got any background in the parish council who can come and sit here with any degree of experience or knowledge. So that's why I need 3.
I understand why you're talking to me about it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
It's sort of not me that needs convincing because.
Well, it is actually, because you said in the last meeting, you said this is your meeting. You set the terms of reference, and I said, well, we want more than 1. Bernie said 3. It was agreed in the room. It was 3, and then you said, can't quite see all the hands. I think I might send a poll. You said, we'll take it as, and then you said that. So I thought it was 3. But when it's just been taken as 2 and that's it cut and dried, that doesn't work.
So let's put a pin in the cut and dried. That's why we brought it up and that's why we brought it to this point in the meeting. So we'll put a pin in it being cut and dried. So I do think then it bears further discussion with the group. As I say, on that line, it's not really me because it is for the group to set their own terms of reference. And I'd be interested in hearing from other members of the group about what they think about, because we have had some feedback. If there's exceptions to be made, that's cool. But again, it's not.
I hear what you're saying about not being swamped, but you can see tonight, what's there, 11 of us, 6 here and 5 online. And yet it would have been really useful for me when the line comes right through Wilden, when it's going through people's gardens and through the houses. I do need backup.
Okay, yeah. Gordon.
2 things. Firstly, on the subject of the email list, I get emailed directly, and a couple of days later, I get one forwarded from our parish clerk that goes to all the parish council. Okay, now tell them how quick off the mark I am in responding. So that's that. It does go to individuals and it goes to the parish clerks. That's not a problem. My preference at the meeting was for a maximum of 3. My preference would be for 2, because if you look at the list of the representatives on this group, there's 35. And if it was 3, basically per parish, per ward, whatever, we're going to finish up with a couple of hundred people.
No.
If they all came along.
I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right.
Well, you look at you look at the list of the parish, town and or borough councillors and all the rest of it. On the list.
No, the borough councillors aren't going to be bringing people with them.
The borough councillors.
They're just one person.
But it is all which parish, town, council, ward, electoral division. Can we move on? Can we move on? Right? Can we move on?
I think we need to come, I'm happy to move on, but I think we need to come to resolution.
Okay, I propose that we go for 3, a maximum of 3, if you want a maximum of 3 per parish council.
Maximum of 3, are we comfortable? I'd enjoy any input from people online as well.
Is that it? Carried? Unanimous? Right, job done.
Okay, thank you very much. On the issue of the email list, I think, again, just to close that out, because it seems to be causing some issues, if maybe it would be an action that we should re-engage all the parish clerks specifically and ask for them to go back into the parishes maybe and ask for confirmation of the right people. You know, if our emails aren't making it through, if there's a problem, but, you know, we do manage to get people here, so we have to assume that they're going. But I think we're happy to make any moves you want us to. We'll email whichever representatives you need us to. It's your decision who you send.
I think you should automatically go to the parish clerks. Plus any nominated ones that we've got.
That's exactly just an
Okay.
update then, isn't it? Just a refresh.
Yeah, I think that's it. We'll refresh our lists. That feels like a good time to be refreshing lists. To make sure.
Can I do a last point on the emails coming out? The particular one that we were concerned about was a complicated email. Possibly because of its complication, it dealt with about 3 links within it. And it got a poor response, and you had to extend your time to get responses back in. So that's the nature of the email. It was 3 different subjects, 3 different topics we covered. 4 was wrong, was the last one. And maybe some care in how the information was presented would produce more.
Brevity you feel would be helpful, because I don't think we can deal with fewer issues if those are the issues that have arisen. But should we take those about brevity and communication being helpful?
Yes, sometimes we have a discussion of whether it's useful to send lots and lots of emails with less content or to send less emails with more content, because we don't want to overwhelm people's inboxes. But if people prefer to have more emails with less content, then that's something we can also.
I mean, to be fair, it was sent on June the 19th. I didn't have a problem replying to it.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what then. It feels as though there's kind of a mixture in the room, a mixture of feedback. We'll go away and see if there's anything we can do to improve the process. We'll see if there's anything we can do to tighten it. And if there are any suggestions on that, I think we're happy to take them. So that's great. So I guess with that in mind, I suppose there are people in the, if that's a decision made, let's invite people in from the waiting room, if there's anyone there.
There's nobody there at the moment.
Cool, okay.
Are they in? Did you let them
So
in?
I can re-invite Bernadette. I can send her an email now and I'll do that right now.
Was it just one that was waiting?
The other person confirmed that parish that they've been in, but they weren't from.
So that'd be David Newman.
He's
So
from Milton.
David, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, hi there. I'm Milton Keynes Parish Council.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
good to have you on stage.
Chairman. Okay.
Where from?
Milton Ernest.
Brilliant, thanks very much. That was a very helpful discussion to have up front. I think quickly before we go into the other actions, let's then zip back to the general updates, which is sort of standing items meetings now, so slide 8. We are coming to the close of the community events that we've been holding across June and July. We've got one to go tomorrow in Fenny Stratford, is that right? I don't know why I'm asking you, that's weird. Yes, Fenny Stratford tomorrow will be the last one. We have had, they've been really well attended. They've had over 2,000 attendees to date, and we're kind of working through the comments that we received. Those have been sort of incredibly helpful, quite a wide range of comments and views that people have been giving us at those, and we've handed out, I can't count how many documents, have made quite a lot of changes actually on how we're running those based on feedback that we're getting live from the LRGs. So we are learning on the go about what people want in the room. So that's been fantastic kind of piece on our side. We will, over the summer, probably not be doing anything sort of quite as big as that. Obviously, we're out and away over the summer. But you may have heard Beth say that we're trying to sort of think about what we will do in the autumn, and also as we're preparing for the statutory consultation, which we've sort of spoken about before. So we're looking forward to the next steps as well. And then just on the next slide there, that means just sort of as a reminder, so our current focus internally is the design work and development statement of community consultation. Both of those are obviously necessary for us to have a statutory consultation, which we're still planning for in the first half of next year. We will give you more detail on that as it emerges. We don't yet have a start date on that, and as you know, those start dates are never wholly within our control, but when we do have a view on that, we'll let you know. So
how long would the consultation last?
So statutory consultation would normally either be 8 or 12 weeks, dependent on a variety of things. So we're looking at either 8 or 12 weeks.
And can you tell me what projected date you've got for starting that, Hannah?
No, we don't have a projected date at the moment.
What is your rough gut feeling?
I do not have one at this point.
Well, that's 12 weeks to actually do it, and then how long to consider it before you move into the DCO solution?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, it depends to a large degree on what comes back, because
it took 2 years since the last one.
Yes, we don't want to be doing that again, do we? It's sort of worth reminding that it wasn't just analysing the detail that caused that to be as long as it was. But to some degree, what comes back in consultation will define, or at least play a big part in how long it takes, because the point of consultation is to get information that we haven't seen, haven't considered, or people feel we've kind of misinterpreted or whatever, and try and get that through.
Can I just ask, Hannah, when you've done the statutory consultation, do you then go to the Secretary of State for Transport and say, this is what's come out? Do we apply for the DCO, or will you just apply automatically?
Oh, wow, really good question. So the DCO process, at every stage, basically, we have to go to the Secretary of State for Transport. So the Secretary of State for Transport signs off the beginning of any consultation, any major announcement, any of that sort of stuff. So they will know, I will answer your specific question in a sec, but so what will happen is the consultation documents and all of the technical information behind it will get seen by the Secretary of State for Transport, who will then give us the go-ahead to go into a consultation. We'll hold that consultation, analyse what comes back, use that to help shape the final designs, what we would hope to be the final designs, along with any other environmental information and the rest of it that we've got in. We then absolutely do package that up into, okay, this is, we believe, the strongest design that we have. That gets submitted, the process for submissions, that goes to Secretary of State for Transport, who immediately gives it to the Planning Inspectorate and asks them to hold a public inquiry. That's just part of the standard process. They have, I think it's a month or 28 working days or 25 working days or whatever it is, to acknowledge receipt of that and to say that this is technically compliant with all the documentation stuff. They hold a public inquiry, which I believe is 6 months. It's not my public inquiry, is not my full area of expertise. And then at the end of that process, they will make a recommendation back to the Secretary of State for Transport that's fully evidenced. So they'll make a suggestion back. The suggestion could be, no, don't go ahead with it. It's not working for us. Most projects, if you've got to that point, because of the level of consultation you've already had, you want to be towards the yes end. It's not that common to get just a full-on yes completely. It's more normal to get yes with conditions. So then there's a period where you look at executing those conditions, how you would execute those conditions. So putting community structures in place or specific methodologies for construction, that kind of stuff that they think you haven't quite got that right. Let's make that change based on the inquiry. After all of that, the recommendation is made to Secretary of State for Transport, and ultimately it is the decision of the Secretary of State for Transport.
If I can just take you back a couple of stages, sure. To the end of the statutory consultation, does the Secretary of State then say, yes, apply for the DCO or not? Or do you just apply by yourself?
That's a really interesting question. Technically, no, I don't think they do. I think we are working, as you'd expect, quite closely with the Department for Transport. And the Department for Transport will have a view on what we'll do is we would take that feedback, analyse the feedback, and create a consultation feedback report. And at that point, that would go through the various levels to get on the desk of the Secretary of State for Transport. And I think it would be at that point. I think it's at the submission point. Yes, I think I'll take that away. I think that's a really technical nuance, actually, in the process. But ultimately, you don't. We do talk, obviously, to the Department of Transport.
The sort of point I'm making is at the end of the statutory consultation, this is what we found. Can he, at that point, is he likely to say, no, pull the pin, I'm not convinced?
Yes, that's a really good point. Before any major announcement, and I believe that would be the same process as for the submission of DCO. So yes, can I take that away? That's such
just precisely what I want to know is when you've done the statutory consultation, before you actually apply for the DCO, does the Secretary of State for Transport say yes or no?
So the equivalency in the processes that we've had so far is, say for the last consultation, at the close of the consultation, we would be feeding back, broadly speaking, this is what we've heard, but we haven't at that point had a chance to analyse any of it properly. So that takes a while. Before we publish the document, before we publish anything, the Secretary of State for Transport has to sign off on that publication. So that's the equivalency. So my instinct is yes, that the Secretary of State for Transport would have to sign that off as part of the submission process. But I think it's a little bit chicken egg, which way around that goes. So can I take that away as an action?
Sure, yeah, if you could let us know, that'd be good.
I think it's one that's really interesting.
I'm full of interesting questions.
I like that. That's a bit of a process I've never been asked about before.
Can I just go back a stage as well?
Sure.
To the red box, the ongoing design work and the development of the statement of community consultation. The ongoing design work, there's still a fair amount to be done. And speaking to some of your engineering colleagues, and they may want to contribute to this discussion, I was led to believe there's about 9 months' work of design work still to do before we can launch the statutory consultation, which would take us to spring 2024, probably, as being an indicative time frame, rather than just January the 1st or June the 30th. So that's the first point, just for information. The second point is the statement of community consultation. That has to be consulted on, doesn't it? So that precedes the statutory consultation itself, because you have to get approval for the SOCC.
Exactly.
How you're going to consult people, basically, before you launch the statutory consultation. So when will the SOCC become public?
Sure. So the SOC is a document that will become public before, my understanding is before the consultation. Yeah. So the SOC, technically, the engagement for the SOC is with local authorities and other sort of statutory groups. I think, as people in this group have heard me say before, my aspiration is to try and have really similar conversations with people who aren't necessarily required under the process, which would include this group. So sort of referencing to the email that we sent this week asking to switch the focus for this, what I'd like to have next time is a really kind of in-depth conversation along the lines of those kind of elements.
Right, then you have to. Are you all eating at the same time?
Tom,
I'm just listening to it.
Tom, I don't know if you meant to come off mute. Did you have a question? Okay.
Is Bernie on yet?
She isn't. I've sent her an email if someone does have a contact.
Because she posted a message. I can't believe they sent me an invitation. I won't let me in.
I don't know if you can reply to that and say if she tries again while we're in.
I didn't reject, like, she left the meeting room before we had the conversation, so I sent her an email since, but if you could message her, that would be great.
So in terms of just to go back to that point then, the SOC is, as you clearly know, if you understand the process, but sort of for everyone else, it's a really specific document. It has a really specific kind of purpose and it's part of the process. But we do want to make sure that the LRGs are. The SOC is one of those documents that it's really, really helpful, but sort of you want to go as far as you can with it. So we can execute aspects of the SOC, but I think we can go further, and I think we should be having conversations with all the LRGs on the route that are asking some really specific questions around what methods work for you within your communities, what disenfranchised groups maybe are there that we wouldn't necessarily pick up, what kind of venues do you think work, what kind of events work, how do people use online, so to really get under the skin of what you know about your specific community, so that we can make sure that we're acting in that way with your community. So that's the point of the SOC, and that's the kind of conversations that you have with the local authorities about in that space, and that's the kind of conversations that we like to have with others. Oh, that's it. So I hope that's helpful, because I think what we're trying to do is to go above and beyond the statutory duties of the SOC, try and make sure it's as impactful as we can.
Just going back to the first part of my question, the ongoing design. Can somebody confirm how long that's going to take for the room to go to the site?
No, so I think that whoever you spoke to at that event may have been a personal view, but we don't have a date for that, and I don't think that I know that that's not that may have been a personal view on how much work they had in their hopper, but I don't think that's we don't have a date.
You've got two people on.
Yes, we do have people with their hands up.
Contribute to that.
Exactly. So, do you mean Mo and Rob?
Well, yeah.
Well, I think, let's be really clear though, however often this question is asked, by whoever asks it, I don't know why someone told you that in that meeting. I don't know.
Because I asked the question.
Yeah. I don't know what caused them to come up with that timeline. We don't have a date, and as I said, part of the dates, a lot of the dates are beyond our control, because as I've said, we need agreement from the Secretary of State and from other people across government to get stuff out the door. So I don't think it's right for anyone on our side to be making inferences about things that we can't control. So I just need to be really clear about some aspects of that. We are trying to get this out as quick as we can, because we know that we want to kind of give people more information. But if there were dates being thrown around at those events, there shouldn't have been. So I apologise for that.
Hannah, I was just dropped in because obviously my opinion was asked, but to be very honest, I've been listening and I agree with pretty much every word Hannah said on that. I've been asking questions at events, and my view is that we're looking at programs where we're looking at the first half of 2024 for StatCon and how we can get there, and there's various pieces of work being developed for design and for the other aspects that we look at, environment, land and property and so forth. So I think we're very much in that space.
Thank you.
Could I
quickly go to Justin, because he's been very patient for a long
sorry.
time. I'm so sorry. Justin, do you want to jump in? I see you had your hand up for quite a while, and then we'll definitely come back to you.
That's fine. So it's just a little bit more on the SOC and the statutory consultation. So you said earlier on that next year's statutory consultation period would be 8 to 12 weeks. Is it the SOC that determines whether it's 8 or 12?
My understanding is it can have influence, yes. So the SOC is kind of an agreement that we make with the local authorities. So we'll go out to them. So my understanding is yes. I will have to hold my hand and say I'm not an expert in SOC. If we need someone to chat about that, I do have Charlie, who's leading that on our side.
Okay, there's one very specific question which I don't expect an answer, but if you can take it away, please. Is then, will the likes of the LRG and parish councils get an indication of whether it will be an 8 or 12 week consultation? Will we get advanced warning of that? And when might we get it?
So for a statutory consultation, interestingly, the process is a bit different from a non-statutory consultation, which is the ones we've had so far, because obviously the non-statutory are effectively voluntary consultations. So that the process is slightly different in some ways. For a statutory consultation, there's a statutory notification period in advance of the consultation, so you'll know it's coming basically. If it's helpful to give as much as we're able to in addition to that, and I will say we always kind of get to this point that, as we say, we have to have agreement from the Secretary of State before we talk externally about timings and that kind of stuff, about the consultation. So I can definitely commit this meeting to telling you as early as we possibly can. I will scurry away and find out what as early as we possibly can means in terms of the DCO process. But there is a statutory notification period ahead of the consultation starting that is just part of the process.
Well, okay, so the scenario we would be very, very disappointed to find ourselves in is getting a week's notice that we've got 8 weeks.
Oh, yeah, I think the statutory notification period is, I think the statutory notification period is a month. Let me take that away, but it's not a week. There is a statutorily defined notification period, which I'll scurry and find out. It's definitely longer than a week. Off the top of my head, it's definitely longer than a week. Nikki?
Yeah, just a quick one, Hannah, and building on Justin's comments, I think we would be even more dismayed if we had notification that the statutory consultation would be starting at the start of the school holidays as well. Obviously, the 6-week period, certainly for parish councils to galvanise people when people on holiday and everything.
And again, for us as well, I mean, it's not ideal. It's really not ideal from our side either, because we want as many people as possible to respond, as do you. So it's not. We would do everything we could to avoid that too. As I say, it's not always within our control, but I would agree with you on that point.
Before
it's basically you always try and avoid the summer break and Christmas and possibly Easter as well if you possibly can. But it's not entirely within our gift, but I agree with the point being made very strongly. Gordon,
if you're sending out any sort of notification about the SOC and the StatCon, can you do it by mail? And if so, can the LRG put forward the postcode areas? So that we don't have the...
So I think that this, interestingly, you've almost jumped into next session's discussion. So the SOC itself is not something that goes out for a public consultation. That's something that is done, it's a stakeholder consultation. So that would be done with you, with the local authorities, more. That's done with representatives of communities rather than communities itself, because otherwise you're just in permanent consultation and people actually stop responding, which is not helpful for a variety of reasons, but you basically deal with people's representatives. What the conversation I'd love to have next time, and that's a really good example of these are the things that we would like you to do in the consultation, and we can take those ideas away, we can give some indication if there are some that are very expensive or maybe would take more time to plan, so we'd have to push the consultation out and stuff like that, we can give some indication, but I think that is entirely the kind of thing that we would really like to have, and without anyone in the room that's going to tell me off for saying it, I think that sounds like a really good idea. So that's one that I would be relatively confident of being able to take forward, as long as you weren't insane and wanted to send to Edinburgh or anything like that. And the statutory notification period, generally speaking, that's done through formal advertisements in local papers, as well as a bunch of other methods too. So there's quite a large body of a convention when it comes to that, but also anything on top that you want. I think again that'd be a really good discussion to have next time. So any considerations that you can have over the next few weeks towards that would be really helpful.
Just if I can, just to amplify what Justin said, I think it's going to be important that the maximum length of time possible is given to the statutory consultation for several reasons. One is a lot of material that I've read in relation to the route update announcement says, oh, we haven't done the work, but it'll be coming forward in the statutory consultation. So we need time to consider what is going to be new evidence. And the second is, particularly in relation to Roxton and Justice, it's the potential to vary something entirely new.
Yep.
So the first opportunity to comment on that will come in the statutory consultation. And I'm sure a lot of people want to look at that very thoroughly. As much as I have been able to vet the long longitudinal drawings for the rest of the route, which aren't yet in existence for the variant. So it's that sort of level of detail that we're waiting for. 8 weeks or whatever, it's just not going to be long.
I definitely take the point on that. I'll make sure that gets fed back. My personal preference, because I quite like doing consultation, getting out and talking to people, is to try and do as much of it as possible. As I say, these things aren't always within our control, but I am really confident playing that back I think that's a really.
Yes, I don't think there's actually a defined maximum length of time for statutory consultation.
Weirdly, there's kind of guidelines. If it goes too long, people lose interest and sort of wander off a little bit. So I
Don't kick yourself.
Yeah. Well, we promise to remain interested.
Good.
Can I-
It's very fun when they're interesting.
Can I ask a quick question? The ongoing design work, clearly you published a report and there are some questions posed in that, indications of work that you're doing, and I guess there's a lot of work going on that you haven't necessarily itemised in public. But are you going to share as you go along, firstly, what you're doing in terms of what you're focusing on, and secondly, any conclusion that you come to as you work through that process?
No, so really the consultation is the moment to share what the conclusions are. So we, as I said before, we can't put anything in the public domain that hasn't been approved by government at a number of different levels and a number of different stages. So if we were to continually show our working, we would have to get everything signed off and nothing would ever move. So there are elements that we'll be able to kind of walk you through, some areas that we're looking at, but we won't at any point be able to share conclusions until we get there.
But okay, so I understand that. It's unfortunate, but there it is. But are you going to tell us in any detail what the work programme that you're doing is? What are the issues that you're trying to resolve? Because you alluded to some of them.
Oh, so like a list of things that will be in the consultation?
Or the things that you're busy on.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Because in here you say, excuse me, in here you say, we haven't quite decided on that. We haven't quite decided on that. Or this is something that we're working on, or will be working on. I just wondered whether you were going to be able to share what it is as a list of things that you're working on during that design.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting question.
Hannah, Rob's got his hand out.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, Rob.
Yeah.
I suppose we have a list per se because it's quite a holistic across the whole route kind of approach, isn't it? But I'd be interested in your.
It's a bit of both. So the sort of keen-eyed people reading through the CFR, as it sounds like the people you got in your room, to be honest, will have picked out the there's a number of elements we've said we're developing this further. We're looking at those options. I mean, particularly the temperature variant. I think we've been quite clear there's further design development in for that route. So there is various pieces already sort of listed out. Where they are in this this LRG group. I think we can quite easily set that out. I'd echo your point, Hannah, through sort of past experience. I think the danger is as you develop in a design, quite often a part of that design you think you've got an answer to, and it's fairly certain. And then as you develop another bit of design, the answer you had initially may change. So it's very hard to actually come out and say you've fixed any part of the design until you've got the majority fixed it, and actually, as you say, signed off, and things can change sort of late in the day. So I think it's very hard to say what the decisions are there. But I think the areas we're looking at in the area are sort of pretty set out in that sense. I mean, there is a across the piece bit where you continue to develop the level of detailed design for the whole route, and then there's certain sort of issues, hotspots you're looking at, particularly things like if you're crossing over or above major roads, typically in the kind of core section for myself.
Rob, would there be then an element in? I understand we've got some other reports that will be due out before the consultation, so the scoping report. Now, without going into detail about any kind of big chunks in that right now, but broadly speaking, would that be a good opportunity for people to understand a bit more about what's going into the consultation? I've got to admit, I'm not as close to the scoping report, but I understand that is a document that gets produced sort of earlier.
Yeah, but the scoping report just gives us sort of broad areas where we're considering we will. I'm not an expert in the area, but it's more looking at the sort of broad areas that we will be taking forward and where we need to do, where we'll be focusing surveys and things like that on rather than specific
Yes, that's certainly more like
details.
environmental team. I tell you what, can I take that away as a question? And we'll have a think about, because I'm sure there are moments in the statutory process where elements for elements being brought forward, we're able to share those. So let's take that away as an action then.
Can I just ask on those actions, Hannah, the stuff you're taking away, can you give us a definitive date when you'll be replying on that? Because otherwise it just gets pushed to the back.
Yeah, sure. So normally we will let you know when. So we've actually got actions which we haven't gone into from the last meeting. So normally we just respond to the actions meeting by meeting. I think that feels about right because these are some quite complicated
So
issues.
6 weeks to the next one. So anything you're taking away now, you're not going to be answering for 6 weeks.
I mean, if you want to change that, we can. It's
Yeah, I mean, the answer surely can be, as they are known, can be put out with the record of the meeting.
Where we have them, they are. What I'm saying is some of these questions we might not be able to produce definitive answers. The definitive answer might end up being, we don't know yet. But if you give us a bit more, if you want a quick answer, it may well be, we don't know. If you want a comprehensive answer, it might take a little bit longer. So I think that's the payoff, and that's the only reason I'm a bit reticent to give you a hard date, just because I know that we're going to summer season and people are taking time out of business. But I mean, actually, before I had the discussion today, as it happens, about the having more regular turnaround time for responding to meeting requests, so requests that arise in meetings. So I think we're kind of thinking about that anyway.
Yeah, none of that answers the question though.
I don't know is the answer to the question.
Right, so I've asked you a specific question that you're going to go away and look at on when you've done the statutory consultation, do you go to the Secretary of State?
Yeah.
That's a straightforward technical question that you could research and do tomorrow morning, no problem.
No, because as I've said, I'm not the expert, so I need to get.
No, but you can ask someone and they can get you an answer
Someone I
tomorrow
need
morning.
to ask is on leave. I know she's on leave right now. I've texted her on her holiday to ask her if she knows the answer. We're not trying to get these answers to you. What I'm saying is.
But this is generally what happens, Hannah, is that stuff just gets pushed back and back and back. So it's very easy to say, that's a good question, I'll take it away and we'll get back to you, but then nothing happens. So what I'm saying is, there's a specific question, it's a yes or no answer, it's not black and white, it is black and white, it's not grey, and that's not a difficult question. I mean, you've got hundreds of people, you've got millions of hours of work, this is a really straightforward one. That should be something you should be able to come back in a couple of days, email the LRG, here's the answer to a question you asked.
I think I would be incredibly foolish if I said that I know for certain that I can get back to you on any question within a specific time frame.
No, but 6 weeks?
If you want us to turn them around faster, as I said not that long ago, we can absolutely do that. If you want to put a date in the diary to do that, if you want us to return things by a certain date, we can make that accommodation. But as I said, quite often, as we say in the automatic response to our emails, some of these things are. And to take a general point rather than a specific point.
No, but I'm talking about my specific point. I've asked you a specific question.
As I said, I will do all I can to turn that around as quickly as I can. I'm not able to tell you how long that will take.
And the reply will come in the form of an email to LRGs?
If that's the preference, then absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's the forum it's been asked at.
Great.
Yes,
then we'll do
okay.
that. But as for some of the other questions that arise, where they are more complicated, or where, for all I know, that's a question that actually is left up to some discretion of the Secretary of State for Transport, or there isn't a precedent. I don't know the answer because I haven't asked the question yet. So I need to go and investigate that, and I think I'd be incredibly foolish if I said that I knew how long that would take to respond to, because wheels turn at differing speeds in differing organisations.
You do have a system which you use from time to time. When the first record of the meeting comes out, you put in a block there. It's an insert, an explanation of maybe a question was asked, or you just want to explain.
Yes, we do post-meeting clarifications, which allows us to respond very quickly where there is a quick response.
That would be, when do they come out? Is that within 2 weeks from now?
Yes, that's within 10 days.
So, I mean, that's a reasonably early point for which you could expect to have an answer.
That's what I'm asking, will I?
And I honestly would be absolutely insane if I told you that I knew how long it would take to get the response there. If I knew how long it would take to get the response, I'd probably have the answer.
I'll tell you what, Hannah, I used to work in London and I could have got a reply to that answer from one of my team by now.
Great, I'll employ them all tomorrow, but as we are, and again, if I can get the answer tomorrow, I will give you the answer tomorrow. I don't know if I can get the answer tomorrow. It would be very silly of me to promise to do something that I have no ability to control. When it comes to the other answers to the questions that we have in the room, it's more or less the same. We try and pull the answers together as quickly as we can, especially with some of the more technical questions that we get. They do just take longer for us to pull together for the business because quite often we need people from many disciplines to feed in. They're not as straightforward as they might seem externally.
On the question of more information coming out before the strategy consultation, we have had an undertaking from Beth that she expects to have more information available in the autumn.
Yes.
Which I would imagine will be catching up on what you've said at the recent drop-in sessions. But we'll be taking, otherwise we won't have them. You'll be taking the ideas forward and having more answers for the public. Would that be correct?
That's not necessarily, I don't know, I would need to catch up with Beth. I have spoken to her about this. As I said before, we wouldn't be able to share any more information than we've already shared unless it had been signed off by central government. So my understanding of the process as things stand, I'm happy to go back into the business, but sharing more information on design work would be difficult. Sharing information on other aspects of the project would potentially be possible.
Well, at least you need to get the message down to the government, but you've got a community down here who are gagging for more information.
Sure, but as Rob said, there's a certain amount of work that we need to do to design the railway. That work, we've had estimations, from the team, but this is a railway that runs. There's work that needs to happen from Oxford all the way through to Cambridge. We can't release bits because the decisions in some areas affect the outcomes in other areas. They do. So it needs to be a piece that we can share with people when we're very, very confident. We can't share half-baked plans with people. We have to be sharing things that we are quite confident in. It would be very irresponsible of us to be sharing stuff that we just sort of thought was about right, rather than from our perspective, this is what we think is correct. So we need to be very confident that we have a holistic design for that section before we're able to. There are other elements of the project that I believe would be what Beth was talking about that we will be able to discuss. But I wouldn't imagine being able to share design work in advance of the consultation.
Well, we wait with interest to see what.
Awesome, thank you. I do understand it's frustrating.
So sorry to follow on Brent's point, but when the route announcement was made, there were a couple of Zoom sessions. One was given by Beth to, I think, the LRGs. One was given to humble members of the public, such as myself. The chat box that was given by Will. The chat box for that second online too filled up very rapidly with a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Have they been answered?
Yes.
And if so, where do I
find them? A lot of them have been answered. Those have been answered.
Where?
Published on the website where the recording is, and any that are still outstanding or still working on them. I think at the moment they're almost complete with that.
Okay, so I need to pick up the recording and find the answers.
On the Community Hub homepage where the recording is, there's also a link to the list of questions that were asked and answered.
We've also been doing, at the end of every event as well, we've been doing, picking off the 5 most frequently asked questions in the room. So they're videos, really sort of short, sharp videos that are from each specific event that we've had, the 5 most commonly asked questions in the room. So there's more information coming out.
You did at Ravenston.
Yes.
You recorded in the middle of the afternoon.
We recorded some footage in the middle of the afternoon, but we can go back to them as well.
I'm just going to bring up the slides to show you where it is. Ooh, sorry. Might be useful, but I'm not finding it.
Okay, so
I'll bring that up after.
Yeah.
So, really interesting, we haven't actually got to the Q&A section yet because we sort of had quite a good in the round discussion about a variety of things. I think we're finished on this slide.
Can we go back to that slide that we were talking about on the current session?
Yeah.
On the ongoing design work and development of the site. At the Love's Farm drop-in session, I had a long chat with Beth, and I said that Highways England, National Highways now, when they came out with the proposals for the A428 Black Cat to Caxton Gibbet, they produced a fly-through video. And I said, she said, yes, I know. I said, something like that would be fantastic. It will help your engineers understand the issues that are facing them, and it will give the public a better idea of where you see the thing going and happening. And she said, yeah, sure, we can do that. So will you make an open holder to it, please? Can we have it?
So I think, yes, fly-through is a great, I think these are all ideas that we should take into the session where we talk about that kind of stuff, because the kind of materials you think work, the kind of execution, all that kind of stuff. I'd really like to have to have a session around that. Justin, you've got your hand up again.
Just to tag on to that point, so as far as our parishioner is concerned, a fly-through along the route is interesting. It doesn't really tell somebody what they're going to see outside their back door, bedroom window, that sort of thing. So CGIs from agreed viewpoints around the affected villages are more informative for parishioners living along the route about what's this going to look like from my proverbial back door. So whilst I found the CGIs, the fly-through route that Highways England produced, yeah, it was vaguely interesting, but it didn't tell anybody on the ground what they were going to be looking at. It just told them what they're going to see from their cars to drive over it. Similarly, what I can see from a train going over, let's say, the Tempsted variant, it's just going to tell me I'm going to be able to see into people's back gardens.
Thanks.
I just think the viewpoint of images is really, really important, and a fly-through is of limited value along the route. It's better to do CGIs at ground level from vantage points in and around the rural areas.
Thanks, Justin. I think that's really helpful, and it's something we can certainly sort of start thinking about before the next session that we have. And again, I think these specific ideas about things on the consultation.
I know. I mean, on that, routinely we would provide some visualizations as part of the statutory consultation and DCO application process as well. So as part of the supporting the environmental assessments, those sorts of visualizations were done. The question is always where you produce those from and what you're aiming to show. I mean, the fly-through is quite a neat sort of video, usually sort of flown over the top of the route, and you might have that as StatCon or DCO, but not earlier.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm keen not to kind of preempt the next session and kind of work that here, because I know we've got a number of questions that people sent in advance, and I just checked the time, and we've got sort of quite limited time to have a look at those questions. I'm so sorry, Rob, to do that to you and to cut across you like that. But
excuse me, Hannah, just speaking on that point, if that's finished, the email correspondence that you and I had, the question I sent in, which was certainly a quick one, I think you could answer quickly. Could we do that one tonight?
We've got all the questions lined up here.
Right.
We've got a bunch of actions from the last meeting that it'd be really helpful if we could just close those out, to your point earlier, that we don't want to leave things hanging. So I think if we could just kind of pop into a review of actions from the last meeting. We'll go through this fairly quickly and we'll get to all the questions that we've had in from the last meeting. If we don't manage to get through every question, we have got Rob and Mo have been pulling responses together that we can send out, so that's helpful. So just, we'll go through these really quickly, but I think it's important for the record that we do. So we've had a question about that first one. We did send information about soft landscaping in CS1 in an email following the meeting. We circulated a poll on topics to be discussed at following meetings, which is as part of this poll. We will cover these two questions that were specifically asked in the last meeting. So why a train can't follow the road south of Bedford, and further information on alignment 1. So Rob and Mo are both. No?
Shouldn't follow the road. I think that's a bit of a typo.
What did you want that to say?
Follow the route. The Be Fair Southern Option route south of Bedford.
That's my mistake then, because somebody was asking why a road could go through rather than a train. It was that's what I took from the transcript,
okay.
but that might be, I may have misheard that.
And then if we just pop through, I think we've got some more actions. So I think these are the Be Fair related actions.
Okay,
so there is a meeting going in the diary with Be Fair and Beth and some of our technical experts as well. So we'll expect to cover some of those points in more detail. So specifically, meeting with Be Fair's geotechnical experts and geotech people on our side, and reviewing how information has been considered around the cost of Route E and those areas as well. I know that was a question that Mike had particularly, so we'll include that in that meeting. And then, where are we? What's the next slide? Cool, so actions from the last meeting. And then now, the Q&A. So, I think this is where I'm going to hand over to Rob and Mo to respond to these. So we'll start with the ones for actions from the last meeting.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that from the conversation I just heard, I think sort of both points were made, but I'm pretty sure there was the mention of following the road. This was something we looked at in part of the Varsity hybrid work and reported in the route update report and also the economic and technical report. It's basically the key road between the south of Bedford and Thames St Neots is the A421. We did look at a variation of following that route, albeit it's from the east of Bedford, but if you sort of follow that down, you'd still encounter the same problems we highlighted, which was you'd be crossing through large areas of floodplain, and we'd still be impacting scheduled ancient monuments around the sort of east of Bedford, east of Priory Park, to the area around the A41, crossing that cycle path, and it sort of goes back to the same point as well, that following that the A41 would take us into connecting to the south of Bedford, and that's not the preferred alignment as we've sort of explained in the reports.
Just to be clear, Rob, that's misrepresenting the Be Fair position.
No, it's a separate point.
If that can just be recorded, and then we take that up with Beth in the meeting that we do down.
No, sorry, this is a separate point from the Be Fair. We knew about the Be Fair alignment, but the question was also raised in the discussion we had about why we couldn't follow a road out of Bedford. So this is the point we've made on the specific point of following a road. We've made the points on the Be Fair alignment in separate places, so we're not misrepresenting. We are answering a separate question.
I think if I can come in on this one and just say that I think, having spoken to some of the members of the public as well, there seems to be some, I will not say confusion, but there's two separate alignments, two different alignments that have been developed. One of them is the southern alignment, which is in line with route option B, as we'd actually consulted on it in 2019 and Be Fair modified. And there is also the additional alignments that we've developed as part of the, after 2021, which is the Varsity hybrid alignment. Often I found that the two are being confused and actually considered to be the same, and they are not. They are two separate different alignments. Both go to the south of Bedford or southeast of Bedford, and both have similarities, but they are not the same, and we are very aware of that, just for the record.
I can't remember this question being asked at meeting number 10.
Okay, I think it was in the follow-up notes.
I think we're going down the right alley with this.
Yeah, I agree.
Not relevant at all, because,
Then let's not waste more time. Let's move on.
yeah, okay.
Okay, next question. Tempsford variants.
Yes, this was discussed, and they discussed more detail required for Tempsford. I mean, sort of hold my hand up the position we're in. We've provided the level of detail we can provide in the CFR and the route update report. So this is sort of reinforcing, explaining that position and the justification for the Tempsford variant itself. There's a question whether we want to specifically follow up on to discuss the Tempsford variant as part of a sort of follow-up session, and that's something we can discuss at the end when we talk about follow-up positions. But our response here very much just sets out our justification for the Tempsford variant, which is that it's obviously it's the hybrid between alignment 1 and 9. Alignment 1 scored better in the 2021 consultation assessment factors, but our assessment is that there's greater opportunity for development at Tempsford station location. So we've developed the Tempsford variant to pick up Tempsford station from alignment 1. I'm happy to discuss around it.
This answer, can I speak? This answer just highlights everything that East West Rail have done wrong. We've had a disingenuous first non-statutory consultation where you gave out information, you gave out prices, how much things would cost. Then after the consultation had closed, you changed the prices and come up with something that wasn't actually consulted on. At the second non-statutory consultation, you gave people route alignment choices. People who live in Wilden, for instance, voted for Tempsford because that would put the railway line south of Wilden. But at the end of that, you came out with going through Wilden, but going to Tempsford anyway. So both of those have been disingenuous. And my main concern now is at the statutory consultation, are you going to give us more guff as we've had in the first two non-statutory ones, and then come up with a DCO based on anything?
I think the approach here is following a development and feedback from consultation to take forward a solution.
No, it's not. What you've like the first consultation, you gave a set of prices, people consulted, you closed the consultation, excuse me, Rob, you closed the consultation, you then changed the prices, and then you made a decision based on that. You didn't reconsult. The second non-statutory consultation, you gave a route of options, and then after that had closed, you came up with an option that hadn't been included, the Tempsford variant, but you didn't hold a reconsultation. And I am concerned now that you're going to do the same thing again. It's no good talking over me, Hannah, because I'm going to finish the point I'm making. The statutory consultation, if it's anything like the two cock-ups of the first two non-statutory ones, why would people have any confidence at all that the information you're giving out is genuine?
So there's a lot of different points in there, and I think we need to address them as different points. The statutory consultation will be a consultation which involves the Tempsford variant. People are going to be consulted on the Tempsford variant. That's a fact. As Rob was rightly saying there, the Tempsford variant was in part a response to the consultation feedback. Now, it's absolutely fine that you can look at the consultation feedback and interpret it differently from we did. But we have to take a lot of different pieces of information into account. The consultation feedback, environmental studies, economic studies, what's technically possible. And our view is the Tempsford variant is currently the best design approach. That is obviously not a view shared by everyone. We understand that, that's fine. But that view has been in part influenced by feedback from consultation, and that is the point of the consultation process. Other things that we've done as a result of the consultation have been to relook at the height and length of the embankments. We've been additional options for some of the level crossing executions further west. The point of a consultation is to get feedback, to get information you haven't had before, and to help that take the next stage of design. It's totally and utterly legitimate, and indeed is part of the process that you would change designs going through the process. Otherwise, whatever you put out in your first consultation would be whatever you take to the Secretary of State for Transport.
Hannah, none of that will wash. You can't give out false information, do a consultation, change the detail afterwards, and then make the decision.
I understand.
It just doesn't work.
I understand that you have interpreted the situation that way.
I've interpreted your documents for being correct and genuine. The facts and figures you gave out, you changed afterwards.
And we clearly said in those documents that as we do more research, and as we've said at every stage of the project requires us to do more research and to get more information in and to understand more about a range of things. The environmental constraints, the engineering constraints, feedback from local authorities, and absolutely the finance.
Well, at that point, when you've got all the facts and figures straight, that's when you should reconsult.
And that's what we're trying to do.
No, it's not. That's not what's happened.
I'm interested.
Okay, I'll tell you how it should have worked. You did the first consultation. You said, these are the figures, these are the prices. Everybody put in their 2 pence. You looked at it afterwards, after that had closed, and said, actually, we've changed all those figures now, so we're going to make a different decision. At that point, you should have come back and said, these are the correct figures now. We got it wrong before. These are the correct figures. Now we're going to consult.
I don't agree with that.
I don't see how you cannot. Almost universal feeling in the communities that you consulted, you changed the figures, and that would definitely have altered people's views as to how they would respond to the consultation. The moment it gone, you changed the figures, you moved on, there was no further consultation.
Okay.
Exactly. It's not in any way democratic.
I do need to be clear on this point. Consultation is a process, but it isn't in and of itself designed to be a voting system. It is designed to
why even ask us? Why even ask us if you give us the wrong information?
Because it is consultative, that's the point. It's not a vote.
You mean it's a tick in the box? It's ticking the box.
As I said before, we've made significant changes to the design with input from consultation responses.
At that point, when you've made significant changes to the design, then you should reconsult.
We are reconsulting.
No, you're not. You've not reconsulted on your first non-statutory or your second non-statutory.
That's not, sorry, I'm having trouble describing, that's not the process of consultation. Otherwise, you would ask the same question over and over and over and over.
No, you wouldn't. You'd give the information, you'd do the consultation, you'd make the decision based on the facts.
The facts. Sorry,
can I come in and say, Hannah, I think it's not unusual for projects to continue developing their designs as they're going through non-consultation processes. The number of unique responses we got as a result of the first non-statutory consultation remains finite. There was comments on various disciplines, including engineering, environment, costs, town planning, and other considerations. As design developed and the costs were changed, we developed the costs and announced those in 2020 consultation. What happened is that EWR took the view that the feedback from the consultation was sufficient and highlighted enough local information, and the feedback that was received in 2019 was sufficient and allowed us to make that decision. Nothing in the 2019 consultation or comment that came through influenced the choice of the route of the announcement in that regard. It didn't nullify it, if you like. So all those points, anything to do with environment was taken into account, anything to do with embankments was taken into account. The additional factor, and I will just remind you that actually cost is one of 15 factors. So it was one of the factors. It was changed as a result of design development, and that is not unusual. Did it change enough to warrant a reconsultation from 2019? The legal view and the company view is that no, it didn't, and the feedback was received. And that is why we're not holding another non-statutory consultation on route options.
Nothing in what you've just said alters the fact that both your consultations have been disingenuous. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, I know that that's your position.
That is my position,
Yeah,
completely.
I know that that is your position. My view is different from yours in that regard. From my perspective, having delivered both of those consultations, that's different. So let's come to you, John, and then let's. I think Justin's got to stand up.
I raised two quick points and we didn't delay on them. One is you have a sentence there that says it would also serve a new station at Campbell North. That seems totally gratuitous. All the options consider that. Why is that put in as a plus point for alignment 1?
Is that your position?
That's mine. That's
Oh,
my
sorry.
area. But I don't think it is. I think it's just a note to point out that there's another station en route, and that's Camborne North.
Yeah. And the trains will run along the track. There's another passage. I mean, your burdening comments, which are very valid, with gratuitous statements, which look as if they're enhancing the argument, but they're actually nothing to do with it.
Okay, we'll take that away. Thanks.
Okay, the second point is, I listen to all this dialogue and I keep on asking myself, how come in your RUR did you spend so much time considering the varsity line, which, as far as I could see, was not consulted on and was abandoned and discredited early on?
Sure, so I'll let Mo or Rob, as is relevant, jump in, but it was a suggestion that was made several times over the consultation. As I say, we have to look at all of the responses coming through in the consultation. So that was one that people were really interested in understanding why.
This is something that will be discussed on the 6th of September.
Okay, that's a good point.
My recollection of the 2019 non-statutory consultation was it was accompanied by figures that the cost of the relevant routes, even whilst that consultation was still being finished, a recosting exercise was underway, the space was Gould, but the results of that consultation and then that recosting, the new order of costs were not publicised until the route decision was announced January 2020.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's part of it, isn't it?
Even though you knew at an early stage that the cost basis had varied dramatically. I just go back to what Will Gallagher said time and time again. As we go on, we're always backtracking. If we get to something that's worth considering, we consider it. If it doesn't require any action, we move on.
Sure.
But otherwise, we can reconsult if that's what was appropriate.
I think that final clause is, you're right, if appropriate. And I think to just kind of sum up what Mo was saying earlier, there are many assessment factors that we take into consideration with this. There are 15 assessment factors that have been consistent all the way through. Cost is one of them. We understand that this is something that people have a view on, but the consistent advice that we've had is that the cost differentials were acceptable within the bounds of the decisions that we were making, and that the comments that we received in that first consultation, as Mo was saying, were still taken into account, they were still relevant, they were still
just to be absolutely clear, where I live, in the area that I live in Ravenston, a lot of people looked at the options and did not bother to, and they were wrong, but they did not bother to comment on which route they preferred, because option E was so ludicrously more expensive than any of the others. They thought, well, it's not coming anywhere near us. Look at the price of it.
Yeah, that's right.
And they didn't bother to comment. Now, they then find that that figure was wrong, that actually option E became very near the cheapest, and by the way, you ought to have commented because that's the one they're going ahead on. So you completely destroyed the consultation by feeding false information which cause people to look the other way or not take the matter seriously. And that may be their fault,
I'm not
but
saying
the
it's their fault.
consequence lives with us now.
I'm not saying it's their
Yeah.
fault. What I will say, and I think we've now got half an hour and quite a lot to get through, but I would say that the idea that we're publishing information, this is a really good example of me saying there's reasons why we publish data at specific points. Because can you imagine if the data changes and we get more information in, and based on the more information we get in, we change our understanding of the project in a variety of different ways and costs. The information we published was not disingenuous, it was not untrue. That was the best forecasting that we had at the time for those routes. That's the wrong word, but that's the best forecasting that we had at that time. As we said in those documents, we will continue to work out and to continue to flush this out. There's no reason for us to not put out the most up-to-date.
Okay, I understand that, but the consequence for the norms, you should understand the consequence of putting the wrong figures out is not just, whoops, I've made a mistake. It's that a large number of people did not say what they felt because they didn't think they needed to, because nobody goes for the most expensive option.
Okay. With all due respect, and following up Peter's point, you had figures from Faithful and Gould during the consultation in 2019, but didn't disclose them.
If that's not disingenuous, I don't know what is, Hannah.
I think we need to take this away because I'm not, as you know, because whenever we talk about financial matters and these things, I'm not an expert in this area. And we need to take this away. There's a meeting with Be Fair coming up soon, which we know is a specific issue in this matter, and we will bring someone that has greater knowledge and background than I do to that meeting. I think there are a number of items to get through today, and I've taken points, we've taken away, that's as much as I can do today.
It's opened the door on sore memories, all right, this discussion. In actual fact, this question here, there's nothing on that board that isn't in the route update analysis.
Yes.
The words are all there. Since meeting number 10, we've largely looked at that, we've seen all this. There's no point in talking about it.
Okay.
Can we move on to the next one?
Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Peter. I just had one very specific request.
Oh, sorry, Nathan.
That's okay. I fully support everything that my colleagues have said, so we won't go over that again. In Roxton, the parishioners have been asking me for a visual overlay on Google Satellite of your Thamesford variant and how it interacts with the Black Cat works. Now, we've, as amateurs, have had a go at it, but I'm sure your skilled graphics people could do something very, very quickly.
So
could we ask for that?
Yeah, sure. Have you seen was the updated map that we did for that useful?
Oh,
or
that,
is it definitely
yeah.
so you want that overlaid on a satellite imagery?
Google Satellite, your alignment, and the Hobbies England Black Cat works.
Yeah, let's take that away. That's fine. I'm sure that can be accommodated. Thank you. Mo, Rob, who's taking this one?
I think this is me. Sorry, my screen's a bit blocked. Yes, there's two questions on Wilderness that we took away here. I think there's a later question which deals with the alignment through Wilderness, but I think this is the point that the level of detail. So I think we touched on this the last call, that effectively, as we've mentioned a number of times, we're developing the design, so the level of detail that will be publicly available will not match or exceed the 2021 consultation until we get to statutory consultation next year. What we have at the moment, what we've released at the moment, is the intended route which we are working through. I think we've been quite consistent on that.
I think part of that.
So, in the long sections, point that kind of goes on to the long sections point of it. So we wouldn't release the long section drawings that we produce with sort of heights and details of the structures until statutory consultation, where we'll provide those and a great deal more detail on the engineering
And I think part of that, if I can put words in your mouth, Rob, is that the long section drawings that were published in 2021 were effectively the worst case scenario, so the highest and the longest that they might be, the engineering long drawings at the time that were published. We heard in the consultation that people wanted that to be lower and shorter where possible, and so we're doing a lot of work in that space. So there's a lot of design work going on at the moment, particularly in that space. That is one of the things that we're looking at quite a lot. So that's why we don't have the level of detail about those, is because it is something that we're actively looking at.
The point behind that question is that, in actual fact, at the 2021 consultation, you did provide a remarkable level of technical detail over how each of the 5 alignments would work out from A to B. Ever since then, you've resisted providing fine detail.
Yes, so it's not resisting per se, but it's saying that what we've done is in the update announcement was.
But I think it would have been reasonable, because you have changed the alignments in these two instances. You're going further up the hill, above Wilder, so the cuttings will be deeper. And the terms of variation is new ground. And I think that the people are entitled to have a similar level of information that was made available at the 2021 consultation.
Yes, and they will do it the next consultation. As I say, we're in the design.
Right. Well, the next consultation is the statutory consultation, which is different to the non-statutory consultations, isn't it?
Yes.
Because NS consultations, you went down to people, to individual people living in the area, and asked for their comments.
Yes.
You won't be doing that.
Yes, we will. Yes.
Will you? You're going to have a sort of postcard exercise, or are you going to go down to parish council level?
No, it's full, as wide and deep as you can make it. I mean, that's why we want to ensure that the socket is really strong. So for that one, if anything, we do more. I mean, tell us what more we can do. Tell us all the ways that we can reach individual people, hard to reach groups, anyone all that stuff, anything and everything.
Thank you for that, because that's slightly different to understand that I've gathered along.
Brilliant, that's helpful, thank you. Justin, you've got your hand up, is that legacy?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to lower it.
Excellent, okay, so let's, hi, sorry.
Surely, based on this, if you have looked at the alignments and lowered them, and lowered the viaducts, etc., it would be to your advantage to publish that information now.
Exactly. If we had it, we would publish it. We are still developing the design for that. So if we had that level, it would definitely be to our advantage.
But you've said you've looked at it and think things are lower, etc., etc. Surely it's to your benefit now to put that information out to take the panic away from
the design, as we said before in the former slide. The equivalent point for updating on those issues is the next consultation. We are in a design phase. That means a lot is still moving. So we don't have definitive things to be able to publish. You are right. If we were able to put that information into public domain, we'd be at a statutory consultation. That's what we're working towards. We don't have that information to publish because it is still in design. And that's the point. Design is a process that just has to be done. So we are in that at the moment. If we had them to publish, we would have published them.
No, it's an iterative process that's going on. What ifs, all the way along the route. Where can we save some money? That would be the prime driver. And if they can do it by lowering embankments and shallowing, cutting, that's what they do. But it is it's a wonderfully complicated job.
It is a wonderfully complicated job, you're entirely right. And I think as guys were saying earlier, that there are impacts in different areas. So I agree with your assessment entirely. If we had them to publish, you are right, it would be very helpful for us to publish. And that is what we'll do at the statutory consultation. Let's keep on to the next question then. I think we've got there's been a shift of route, alignment 1 to the north while passing Wilden.
Yes, so I think we noted that in the consultation feedback report several times. So one of the points coming out of the consultation was concern the closeness of the route to Wilden. So we've been looking at the potential to shift the route slightly further away from Wilden. So development or design is taking forward a route further away from Wilden. That's correct.
I didn't see it mentioned anywhere in the write-ups. It just appeared by scrutinising the map.
I'm pretty sure I drafted quite a few lines in the feedback report. I know the conservation feedback report is a huge document.
Let's scrape that report and just make sure we've got that.
Yeah, we can double check the lines there, but yeah, I think it's one of the points we actually set out quite clearly, because it was something that we'd made a positive change from.
This does raise another question, though, because you've changed it slightly, changed the degree of confliction that involved, impacted certainly 2 residences in Wilden.
Yeah.
What steps have been taken to reconnect with those residents to tell them that there's been a change?
So I think that kind of goes into the answer that Hannah gave before. That I mean, the land sort of impact strategy, that i.e. people who are impacted by the routes, is something we're developing, but we will be in contact with impacted landowners before the statutory consultation, where we've got more detail of that. I mean, at the moment we've shown the route where we intend to slightly shift that to the north, and obviously there's a lot more detailed development of how the structures work around that area, and the land that's required for construction and so forth.
So you've changed the lines on the map. So you're changing the expectations of people, but you're not going to tell them. Particularly one of the cottages, it goes 2 meters from their house. If you're going to move it north of that, they now believe that they're going to be compulsorily purchased. If they're not, or if there's a chance they're not, you need to contact them and tell them.
Yeah, so we would have contacted, I'm happy to take that word specific to look at with the land team, if you're comfortable, maybe not on for GDPR because this one gets published, but if you want to give me those people, I'll look into that case with the land team.
It's the lady you spoke to personally when we did the run through Wilden, and she told me that you said to her that her house would definitely be compulsory.
I absolutely did not say that. There's no.
That's what she said. I wasn't there.
I'm happy to stay on camera. There's absolutely no question on mine, because that's just not something that's within my.
Could you look into that for the premises, the red brick cottages, and the one on the top?
So to be clear on the process that we've gone through, all landowners whose property might be impacted will have got a letter delivered to them on the morning of the RUA. The vast majority of those were delivered by hand wherever we possibly could. We also sent letters, is my understanding, and I'll chase this up with teams across in other areas of the business.
I'm sure Brent would have heard from his 2 parishioners.
They've not got back to me to say. In fact, I've spoken to them since, and neither of them say they've had anything.
Okay, let's look this up outside of this meeting.
This really is something that does need chasing. That can't be left for a LRG business.
I'm comfortable with chasing.
Happy to chase that.
I'll talk to the land team first thing in the morning.
And will you get back to me on it?
If you could email me directly, there's a very specific, again, it's a quirk of GDPR, and this is consistent with the way we deal with this across the route. We cannot talk to you directly about any specific case without their express permission.
Can you speak to the people?
We will have to seek their express permission to talk to you about any specific case. That's just the way that the process, we have to honour that. But absolutely, I will pick this up with the land team in the morning and unpick it. As I say, I don't know all of the cases off the top of my head, but I'm happy to look that one up.
Just to be clear, Hannah, that's the centre line of the proposed alignment. It doesn't account for land take on either side.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Next.
While we've got the technical box here,
yes.
Can I just ask a question following on from that map, where it crosses the Colston Road, just north of a reservoir? How do you guys think they might be able to stabilise things? Because with the trains with freight trains, etc., travelling backwards and forwards, and the rail line just above the reservoir, surely that's going to affect the stability of the reservoir.
Good question, guys.
I mean, it's something that we would do structural assessments when we construct the embankment and the structures, and there's also vibration assessments, if that's a concern, undertaken. But you know, I think that the design on the railway wouldn't expect to have sort of large impacts, but we would look at key structures on the route as well to ensure there's not structural impacts to them.
Right, and following further to the east from that point of that reservoir, there was talk about a Coldstone loop as a passing loop for fast trains and whatever. I've not seen anything mentioned on any of the maps and plans lately. Is that still in the offing, or are you going to put a loop?
It was never on a map, but it was a statement at the time of the alignment announcements that there would be a passing loop. And in fact, the passing loop was on the long section drawings. It's still roughly in the same position, and it's likely to stay there because that's in a flat roundabout. Am I right?
I'm not sure I necessarily disagree. I'd agree with most of that. So there was a intention for a loop in this area, which is, you know, additional tracks next to the existing tracks. I mean, it's a track parallel rather than loop implies a sort of, you know, a circular track. But yeah, I know you understand that point. But the operational strategy is something that we're looking at for the full route, so from Oxford to Cambridge, and there's expected to be certain loops required, and that will be set out in the statutory consultation. It wouldn't be on our route update announcement. I mean, I think we have mentioned it through the reports, but it's not something that would show on a route alignment map. It's not, you know, it's obviously just part of the infrastructure of that route alignment.
Because our concerns on something like that, based on what happens on the East Coast Main Line, where there happens to be a bit of a passing loop, there's a high tendency for the trains to toot as they clear the loop or whatever. And in that area, the sound is going to travel a considerable distance. So take that away and think about it.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Just with regard to my last point, Hannah, I have emailed you the details of the residents in Wilden.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think I'm aware that that's the email you sent.
It is, that's that question dealt with.
Okay, we will be following up on that. I think we've only got a few questions left, and I am very conscious of the time.
Where's my big question?
Where's your big question? Which one's your big question? We'll go to that, shall we?
Yes, please.
Which one was that?
The one that
No,
was about.
What was it about?
It was about the statutory consultation and how it sits with the transport and works order.
Oh, that's this one. Yeah, please clarify how the existing team.
It was on the screen.
I was looking forward to
that. I think the slides just got refreshed.
So we can give.
Next one.
Next one after this. That's it. Next one.
So what I'll do is I'll give my understanding of the situation, and Robin, if you want to jump in, because I know that that's not sort of technically I believe, your area of love. So the TWAO was there was granted to deliver the works that were required to deliver the service along the Marsden Bell line. But bluntly, the government or whoever was making the decisions at the time didn't quite understand the holistic nature of a railway that runs in the full length. So the ability for the TWAO to do what EWR needs to do to run the whole length is limited. But bluntly, it can't run the full services under the TWAO.
No.
So the sorry.
So TWAO for improving existing lines, effectively.
Yes.
And that went by definition in the wording of the TWAO authorisation to the centre of Bedford Station. So and that was the work that was authorised and presumably funded. Now we've got section D to go on towards Cambridge, which takes on from which presumably takes on. I presume it doesn't overlap.
No, that's not quite right. So the TWAO, as you say, is for a specific section. The DCO is granted in a different way, so it's a different type of planning process that we go through. So the DCO is type of planning you go through when the programme is being designated a nationally significant infrastructure project. I haven't worked on TWAOs particularly very much myself, but certainly with the DCO, what the DCO covers is specifically two things: the infrastructure between Bedford and Cambridge and what's necessary to do that, and associated works along the line that is needed to run the service. So the DCO covers changes at Oxford Station, changes at Oxford Parkway. It changes that there are a large number of associated works along the route that is part of the DCO. That's
the DCO that's coming up.
Yes.
Starts at Oxford.
Yes. Well, no, this is the point. It's a very odd technical point. The DCO covers Bedford to Cambridge and associated works.
Yes.
And those associated works are outside of that area, things that are needed to happen to ensure that the service that we've been asked to deliver can be delivered. So that would include infrastructure interventions further afield, and in this case specifically the DCO. So it's odd, it's a quirk of the planning system, but it's entirely possible, and it is the way in which we're working, that there are areas that are covered by both the TWAO and a DCO at the same time. The reason EWR Co as an organisation was created was because that's basically odd. And there was an understanding that if a new approach wasn't taken, then the line would be developed in these quite odd sections. So we are delivering the MVL now, the Marsden Vale line delivery, in a way that that doesn't do the TWA stuff first, pause. The original plan, actually, a long time ago, before EWR Co was invented, would have seen the Marsden Vale line working for about half an hour, and then they'd have to shut it down again to do those additional interventions to get the whole line running. When we were asked to review that as a very, very top-level programme, we said that's obviously not going to work. So it is an odd quirk of the planning system, but it is possible to have a TWA and a DCO running at the same time.
So the DCO is actually going to have separate red line areas, disjointed red line areas. For example, at the Bedford end, for example, will it include Bedford St John's, because that's not part of the TWAO?
Yes, so the DCO would include everything. It would definitely be Bedford St John's. It would be the Marsden Vale line. It would be
everything along the Marsden line.
My understanding is yes. Again, very happy to answer the question. Yeah.
Because the statutory consultation is a precursor to the DCO being successful. And so on the point of this question, it's still, what I thought the DCO took on from Bedford Station onwards, did all the new lines.
That is in one sense correct, because the DCO is technically to deliver that, but there is a quite commonly used section of the DCO which is and associated works, and so the associated works that it takes to run the Bedford to Cambridge piece will include the Marsden Vale line.
So statutory consultation then, your catchment area for that is not just Bedford to Cambridge.
No, the catchment area for the last consultation was the entire Oxford to Cambridge route.
That wasn't the last one, that was a non-statutory.
I think you have to remember that everything we did for the last consultation, we'll be doing for this one and more. So it's the non-stat consultations are, if anything, they are less than the statutory consultations. The statutory consultations, everything we had before, in terms of the methods we use and the people it covers and all that kind of stuff. It's the next piece. So my understanding is yes, that the current view would be that the statutory consultation will cover the entire route.
Okay, can I ask you to take that question away as written and come back and let us know in writing the interpretation?
Sure. Is there I'm interested to understand what the implication is if there's a specific.
Do you want it in black and white that is from Bletchley, Peter?
Yeah, well, from where? I think we need to understand what's coming down the line.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Peter, I would suggest that we let East West Rail work out how this is going to be set up in a statutory sense.
Yeah.
If they get it wrong.
Okay.
Just leave it. Yeah.
Is that the issue then? You believe that
I have no idea, but it could be.
I'm really intrigued as to where this came from, Peter. It's such an interesting.
Well, it's thinking outside the box.
But the point is, Bedford, Cambridge, and associated works is that.
Yes, I had always thought the statutory conversation was going to be for the Bedford to Cambridge thing, the real contentious thing about the new line going through people's.
Well, the Marston Vale line, there's a lot of.
But you've got a lot of unfinished business still going on with the MVL.
Yeah, that's fair.
Of what sort of service you can operate on it, and how many levelling crossings crossings you can leave in place.
But as
so, but so that will all go into the statutory consultation. And they will have
has to, because it's a holistic, it's a full route. I mean, I believe it's technically possible to slice it up, but I mean, my preference as a communicator would be to put it all in the same.
That's all right. Thank you. And this is all going to go in the meeting notes, isn't it?
It is going to go in the meeting notes, and you've made me second guess my entire understanding now. So I'm going to go back and just make sure that our DCO, but I hate when you do that. That's I was so sure until you started. Yeah, okay.
I think we need the statutory consultation to run 8 to 16 weeks, so that we've got another 4 weeks to read the bloody document.
Well, actually, there'll be an environmental assessment with it, and 16 weeks for a major project is normal.
I think it's going to be
not
after next
have that view of normal, but we've got 3 minutes left in the meeting. We've still got a few questions to get through. Can I suggest that we do them at speed, or we take them away and do them by email?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I don't really know how to answer that one, because that's the analysis that we've come up with, and it's not for. I mean, it's 2 freight cars in each direction rather than 4. It's 4 total.
Better to concede that there'll be freight on the East West Rail.
So just to be really clear, running that much freight takes an incredible amount of HGVs of local roads. There are clearly benefits to freight. We could be, if it were possible, and if it were part of a mad plan to squeeze a load of freight on this thing, we wouldn't be suggesting the. It's been a long day, but I just feel that we're not conceding. We have done our analysis. Our current analysis is that we are able to run 2 freight paths a day in each direction without having to make significant interventions further afield on the line.
Yeah.
And
but you're basically running an hour schedule, an hourly schedule, all the way through the day. Divided into 4 sections, or 3. If you can get a freight train there and back in an hour period, you can do the same in every other hour during the day.
Point.
You can, and so you could say it can support up to, rather than say we think it can do up to 4 without anything else.
And to be clear, that's 4 total, not 4 each direction. So that's 2.
It's 4
in each direction.
Each day in each direction.
That's not my understanding. Rob, can you jump in?
So for the core section between Bedford and Cambridge, it's, as you said, Hannah, it's up to 2 freight trains per day per direction. So that would be 4 in total, not 4 per direction.
There's another 2 added in as well. Going north.
Not for Bedford to Cambridge. So in Cambridge and other
Confusion
parts
on-
of the line, we maintain the existing freight, but
There is-
between the
yes.
core and the Victoria core and Cambridge, it's 2 in each direction.
Yes, so I think there's a conflation, sorry, yes. The existing, so Rob, there is existing freight, obviously, and we need to maintain existing freight that goes up through Bedford.
Existing freight between Cambridge.
No, so the existing freight going through Bedford, I think, has caused a misunderstanding of perhaps the numbers. The numbers, as Rob said in the core section, is 2 rather than 4.
Thank you.
Right, next question. I think those unfortunately going to have to drop off. I think this is a long conversation and probably one to pick up at the meeting, perhaps, because I know that you particularly wanted to talk to.
Just to re-emphasise that this comes from a statement by your CEO.
Yeah.
On his.
I think it would be helpful. I think it'd be helpful to have Beth in the room to talk through this
The
one.
implication was that any route to the south of Bedford would involve building an embankment which could risk flooding at the south of Bedford.
I think it'd be useful to have Beth in the room to respond to that one, and I think it would be helpful.
If you come away from the varsity hybrid options,
Yeah,
doesn't even
much is possible without any flood issues at all.
So if I could just pop in on this one, please. Thank you very much to Charlotte, who sent me, it is a summary that Charlotte sent, so thank you very much. Could we have the full report, please?
Which report, Madam? That's the flooding report that was sent over earlier today, and I believe.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I only got it at just
Yeah.
gone sort of 3:15, and I've been out, so I've just skim read it, sorry.
It's okay, we double checked with the team, and that is actually the full report you've received.
Okay.
So we have everything we have, we sent to you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Steve, I've actually forwarded that to you as well, if you can maybe, send it out. I think interestingly, it was dated October 2022 as well, and it makes no mention at all of the Be Fair option. It's just varsity and varsity hybrid.
Thank you.
Okay, let's pick that up in
Thank you.
the meeting. So that's one that I would like Beth in the room for.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We've got some very technical questions here, I think, about the way we do the polling. These are the last 2 questions that we've had sent in advance, so let's.
You can take it that way and do it yourself.
Okay, let's.
Yes, that's just admin.
Cool.
And that's admin as well. Well, I think that's admin.
I think that's okay. I think.
So we haven't actually been able to see what's been said in the chat.
Yeah, if you want to log in, you should be able to.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, I was kind of hoping to see it on there.
Yeah, sure, we can put that up there. So we've got.
Comments from Justin.
There's Dr. Johnny seconding a question that we responded to. Councillor Dillon saying he had to go to a different meeting. We have Tabitha dropping some useful links in the route. A note from Dr. Johnny about rail being a key driver for carbon reduction. Justin, an interesting point that freight can result in more, his words, results in more last mile on road movements. So that's an interesting point. And and a significantly more dense. So actually relatively light in the chat today. So I think what would be really helpful then is I completely understand that we've got some chunky issues. We've had some good discussions about some of them today. I think next time we have a kind of Q&A type meeting, it would be really helpful to. I think we'll have a chat with the team about how we can sort of facilitate maybe more of our side coming, more people with greater information, so you're not waiting, and we'll also send out a call for answers, for questions rather, a little bit earlier, so we can make sure we've got the right people in the room. Again, sorry?
Can I ask a question? I expect an answer sometime, but not necessarily now. Where do you expect the freight to come from that will be carried on this line?
So
For the simple reason
yeah.
that early on in the process, one of the attendees told me she had inquired of 50 of the largest hauliers operating along the route and discussed with them East West Rail carrying freight, would you use them? And to a man, everyone said no.
Great.
For our use.
What we're
totally
talking
different.
about, to be really specific, what we're talking about is freight paths. So that's the ability to run freight, should there be a market for it. If there is no market for it, there is no market for it. So I think those are two slightly separate questions. One is the ability to run freight within the timetable there. Our estimation is yes. Whether or not there is appetite in the market to run freight is a different question. And as you say, a question for the market to decide. You know, we wouldn't force freight to use it. I mean, why would we?
One of the questions I've been asked is, are you planning to move waste along the route?
I not personally.
To incinerator plants, etc. That has been.
Good question. Let me take that away. I haven't heard that talked about in business, but I'm happy to take that away. I think it depends on the market for freight stuff, which is.
How do you come back to that?
I guess to sort of close things out, because we've lost Mo now, and I'm a tight schedule myself, unfortunately. But we flick back to that little. So the next session, as I said, I'm really, really keen to have a discursive chat about the SOC. I completely understand we've got some chunky issues to discuss. There is a meeting in with BFAIR to go through those, and we can absolutely continue to have quite challenging discussions. There's no part of me that wants to avoid that.
This meeting with BFAIR, is this the one that's been set up for the 6th of September? That's the way you're.
Yes, but chief exec's out of the country for a month, so she's working, but she's not physically.
No,
available,
I'm not saying it's too far away.
I will point out she's working, definitely, but she's seeing some family, so she's not. So I would just say that I'll just leave you with a final thought on my side, that if we want to put in additional meetings to discuss challenging things, that's fine by me. Please let's have that conversation, and please let's keep it open. There's obviously a lot of questions you've still got, a lot of unanswered stuff. We won't get very far in that meeting with the SOC. I want to be able to make sure that we are delivering the best possible consultation that we can. I would make a plea to this group and to anyone else engaging in that group that we will get so much further with it. We will be able to deliver so much better if we come to that with kind of a different set of priorities for that meeting. We can definitely still have challenging conversations outside of that room, but I think we'll get the most out of that meeting if we can come to that thinking really kind of positively about what we might be able to do for your communities when we get into that consultation. Because honestly, I think for me, that has to be the priority. How we can genuinely reach as many people as possible. And if we have made mistakes in the past, or if there are gaps you need us to fill, that's cool too. We can definitely talk about that. So I guess that's just my Jerry Springer closing thoughts type end to that. I wonder if anyone else has any other closing thoughts before we.
We didn't sort out the terms of reference. I'm not suggesting that we do that now, but we didn't actually do it.
For the number of people?
No, you had terms of reference. You were going to reconsider the terms of reference.
Oh, that's that item.
It was the only item of general.
That was what we meant by terms of reference, was because that is one of the items in terms of reference. So I think we used.
We agreed on the three. We agreed on the three.
Is there anything else you want to change in the terms of reference?
No, I wouldn't have voted on that. I thought you were going to present us with a. I got the impression last time that you wanted to revisit the whole terms of reference.
If there's an appetite from the group to do that, we absolutely can. But from our perspective, I think they were engaged.
There are more important issues to make.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Any more?
How are you doing with Johnny's freedom of information request?
I don't know of an active FOI with Johnny.
For
a more vector-orientated presentation of the content of your mapping.
Vector-oriented presentation, that's so exciting. That's not an FOI that's come across my desk to date, so I'll pick that up tomorrow. FOIs are dealt with by, so I do have correspondence in my remit, but FOIs particularly are dealt with a slightly different team because of the legal nature of them.
It's 9
So
days.
they don't always come across my
It's
desk.
currently 9 days over your 20.
Was that part of the email asking the scale of the maps?
No, that was Johnny.
No.
Johnny.
It's an exactly question.
Can we similar?
It's a different way of showing that.
That's fine.
At least 3 people on the planet that are really.
People have very clear views on how they want to see maps, so where we've been able to accommodate that, so I'll pick that up with the FOI team tomorrow. So yes, thank you for raising that. I'll have a chat with them.
That was a really good request. Because you know that we've always been at loggerheads over the standards of mapping used by East West Wales.
Yes.
Yeah, we all ex-Boy Scouts and Girl Guides, and we understand ordnance survey maps, we find where we are. But try and find out where you are on an East West Wales map. It's very difficult to identify landmarks.
Again, I mean,
when your village isn't even on there.
This has been a complaint from day one, to be fair, Hannah. These yellow blobs started in 2019 and they've just gone on.
Actually, can you, on all the East West Wales maps, can you superimpose a kilometre square? And then we can look at it the same as we would an ordnance survey map.
Yeah, sure.
And we will have a much better idea of where to look.
Yeah, I'm actually sure. I think these are the things that if we can, that one we should be able to retrofit onto the maps on the website now. I'm speaking out of school, but we've made a lot of changes to the maps over the last 8 weeks based on feedback that we've had from people about the level of detail.
Changes to the maps over the last 3 years.
Well, that's fair, but I meant the base map, what we would call base map. So let me take that away and ask the team. All reasonable requests, I think. Wonderful. Thank you so very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Controlling the meeting. I mean, don't agree with everything you said, but I like what you said.
That's very nice. Thank you. I'll take that as a win. I'll take that as a massive.
To old smoothly.
No.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks.